Hello, everyone. Welcome back to TekXpresso, where we serve up quick, insightful, and engaging tech discussions. I'm your host, Veer Varma, and today I'm excited to speak with Mary Ann Pierce, the founder and CEO of Map Digital. For over 25 years, Mary has been building technology to help businesses turn conferences and events into meaningful business opportunities. In today's conversation, we explore the problem that first inspired her to build Map Digital, how her vision and company have evolved over the past 25 years, and how she believes AI will reshape the future of events and businesses networking. What makes Mary's journey especially interesting is that she spent decades watching technology transform the way businesses communicate, connect, and create opportunities. From the early days of Map Digital to the emergence of AI-powered event intelligence, her experience offers a unique perspective on what it takes to build something that can continue evolving alongside technology. Let's get right to it. Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Mary, and today we'll be talking about how Map Digital got started, how the company has evolved over the years, the future of how AI is in the events industry, and finally, some advice for aspiring entrepreneurs. So, Mary, thank you very much for joining me today. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure to meet you when we were it was the Digital Economist soiree we met at. And so I'm
Yeah.
very, very happy to get your request to come on your podcast.
Yes, of course. I had several different conversations with you, and it was a very, very nice experience talking to you. So, thank you very much once again. So, for the first question, every successful company like yours, starts with a problem others are overlooking. So, when you first founded Map Digital over 25 years ago, what was that problem you couldn't specifically ignore, and what gave you the confidence to build a company around solving that problem?
It's really interesting how you phrased the question, but that wasn't my experience at all. I think that there's many different ways that entrepreneurs get started, and that's the traditional way, the problem to be solved. I call that the auteur theory. That's like at a Stanford University, or you're doing your case studies and go, here's a problem in an industry. For me, it was very different. It was more organic. I started what became Map Digital in mid-career. I had already had a life in corporate communications and direct marketing. I also had an arts background where I ran a major theater company as well as worked at PS1. So I had a lot of, experience under my belt. I walked into an opportunity at the convergence when the internet just started to explode, and that was back in the late 90s. And I walked in actually to a party that was celebrating the first internet service provider. And the people who were then Verizon came up to me and they said, "We're really stuck." I mean, this is out of the blue, came up to me at a party. Or Intel wants to install a T1 at Radio City Music Hall, and we only sell 7-year contracts. You can see back in the old days where it's like problem coming to me at a cocktail party and the people saying we don't understand, and the whole connection between problem and opportunity. And I said, well, they probably just needed to use show their website at the event, because I was at Jack Morton, I was doing events. They go, can you come to our office tomorrow and help us figure this out? Opportunity. It happened. The door opened. I fell down the rabbit hole. And since I was in mid-career, I looked and saw new technology, new capabilities, had no idea what a T1 was. They were phone lines to me, but quickly saw that this was a whole new medium, a whole new, not even medium, a whole new infrastructure that could help communications that I care about so much. So that's what I walked in at the very beginning when the internet was brought into events. So I was there before the spaceship was on the launch pad. So that's a different point of view. Once I got there, I go, this is pretty interesting. I think I'll stick around.
Oh, that's wonderful. I never really thought about it from that perspective, waiting for that perfect opportunity, or like actually an unexpected opportunity, you could say, in your perspective. And it's really, really nice to like hear a different type of experience from how you first started Map Digital. And I think a lot of businesses, they usually don't begin with an idea, they begin with like, I guess, waiting, like, I guess realizing the problem and like coming up with the opportunity, or having the opportunity to actually
commit to solving it. And it also shows like how like a successful company takes both uh a conviction and patience, especially when you're trying to introduce something new to an industry. So now, talking more about the evolution of Map Digital, if you compare the Digital you like envisioned 25 years ago to the company it is now today, what's been like the biggest shift, not just specifically in technology, but like creating new values for your clients? What has that been the biggest shift for?
It's a really good question. And I just want to just go back to just a little bit is that we forget what the word opportunity is and we forget what the word community is. Okay, so I told you I was mid-career. I had an arts background and I had a creative marketing strategy background. So I was the perfect person to walk in the room with a bunch of technical people who had no idea how to be creative, how to do that lateral thinking. That's the problem. They had the technology, they had the need, they didn't understand the connective tissue. And that's getting out there and networking and socializing. This is where we find our guides. I don't know if you're a spiritual person, but you get out there and you like, oh my gosh, I know how to make fire. Click, click. Oh, we've been like banging rocks around for a while. That's the serendipity of life. And I believe that you have to be in a community, you have to be active. If you're sitting in your room in Stanford saying, I want to be an entrepreneur, let me find a problem and I'll throw some math at it, that's a tactic. But is that really something the only way to do it? I think we've been sold that story, and it's a very male exclusive capitalistic story. And it's really not what's going to get us out of the problem we're in right now with the 1% and sustainability. We have to be more collective and diversity and have much more community focused. Get in there and start solving problems together, not everyone being experts. So I just walked, I mean, literally fell down the rabbit hole. I mean, I had no intentions of starting a business. And next thing I know, I was indispensable because of the creative and the sort of the strategic thinking that I brought. The technology didn't matter to me. Is what you could do with the technology was that mattered.
Now that we're talking about adapting, I feel like one big technology that's going on right now is obviously AI. It's um it's reshaping a ton of many different sectors. So I wanted to hear your perspective on, you spent decades watching technology reshape the events industry, and now that AI is accelerating that change even more further. From your perspective, what's one misconception people have about the AI in the events and business networking space, and where do you think it's actually going to make the biggest impact?
It's a very big question. AI is not new, though. I mean, AI has been around, and whether it's scripting, I mean, AI or the process of having an intelligence layer, okay? AI is not a magic wand. AI is just reporting on the information that you feed it. It's the intention to be forensic, to discover, to learn, to take that unstructured data that you collect in events and that you collect who watched what, who downloaded what, who asked a question, what session they were in. Most companies, event companies, don't capture that on one single platform. That's why Meta Meetings, when we built it, we were the only technology for a major bank, and we still are for their largest activations and investment conferences. We created this moat where everything went through our platform because we were the single point of we were the technology person. We had the seat at the table. And I want to go back to that ability to constantly be innovating. You must have the trust of your client, and your client must give you the trust and the partnership back. It's a two-way street. If they treat you like a vendor and purchase you on price and dismiss you, you are not going to have that conversation or that grace or gravitas go back and forth. It goes both ways. So that's basically going where your technology provider becomes a partner and trusted, and they're whole and you're whole. That's a big problem. Most technology providers would love to solve the big problems, but they find themselves in the ghetto of on price or like competition. They need to be working a little more strategically with the clients. Just choose a vendor and work well with them. But then to go back to AI. I think it's the intention of why are you having the meeting in the first place? Why are we gathered here together? What is the strategic objective? How will success be measured? Get all that down and then work backwards. What do we need to gather data? Or what experiences do we need to generate to get that data or to get that information so that we can meet our strategic objectives? Most meetings don't start with that exercise. So therefore, you basically, what the meetings industry has done, they've been fractionalized based on price. They get this vendor to do the registration because they're cheaper. They get this person to get the webcasting because they're cheaper, or they give them something else in return. They get another, sometimes they might have 6 or 7 vendors doing the whole ecosystem that our meta meetings collects. So when it comes now to AI, and they've not been looking at their data forever, or they haven't really been strategically mining it, and it's unstructured data, mind you. It has to be structured, right?
Mm.
When it comes to AI, they feed it in there, and it's like a horror show because they have to go back to the basics of why are you gathered here together and how is success going to be measured and what is the raw material that you need to feed this very sophisticated tool that's become AI in the last year and a half, right? To make you even more successful. So a lot of people in the events industry are starting from scratch. And you will see with the major merger and acquisitions that have happened in the last 9 months, Apollo and Blackstone are buying platforms to put them together to make them into a unified whole because they realize that success will be measured in the data analytics and being prescriptive about what the sales outcomes are going to be for the short term and long term, how to continue to franchise that attendee by their actions, what they watch, what they downloaded, where they want, not what they told you in a poll, what their actual actions are. And the other thing that is incredibly underserved in the events industry, and this is what I know from coming from direct marketing, um, that this content that is delivered at conferences is human generated thought leadership. And many times it's not even recorded. Many times it's just the speaker goes up there, blah, blah, blah. Thank you very much. And people are taking pictures of the slides. You capture all that content and the slides and you put them into AI. Not only do you enrich your large language model in which to mine for the next event and the next analysis, but then you take them and you make snippets right after the event to show thought leadership that happened at your conference, to develop your audience around the campfire of your thought leadership. This is the global village. This is using events as a catalyst for information exchange. And then you document that data all along the way. And then you go back to your attendee who you've documented every click and every piece of data, and you say, this doctor, this HCP, healthcare professional, he only or she only went to conferences on childhood oncology. Let us match her, him, with this content that was from our conference so they could have a brief to take home to their medical school or to their hospital. That's when it gets exciting, when it becomes purposeful. And you can do it now. You just have to be organized and intentional and understand how success will be measured. And usually, how success is measured if you listen very carefully to your client and your attendees, because they will tell you what they want, and they're the ones who are buying.
Now, like I have like one of like my favorite questions I usually like to ask when guests come onto my podcast is an advice question. So, if you were sitting across from your younger self, and what advice would you give to that person, and how do you think that advice would actually apply to young entrepreneurs today who want to follow into your footsteps?
Oh, well, yeah, I think that first of all, to be an entrepreneur uh, is a very risky proposition. It's exhilarating, and there are very few people who really have the stomach for it. You have to be constantly curious, and you have to constantly be looking to see the 10,000 foot view of what's going on. But then again, you have to be very, very savvy in getting people to work with you, and your staffing is the most important thing you can do. I listen to Gary Vee, and he's absolutely right. Have empathy for first people, but anybody who's toxic, you have to get rid of them instantly, whether it's your co-founder or it's your CTO, who you think is indispensable. They'll wind up eating your people, and you'll be paying more for it. But what I would tell my former self is that I think you need to take care of yourself, your nervous system especially, because I think we have this false bravo in this culture. I only get 4 hours of sleep and I do this and I do that. And you really are burning yourself out. You really are not having good deep thoughts or good strategic thoughts. But I think that bravo of I'm like this entrepreneur warrior and I just, drink liquid food because I'm too late. I don't have time for my coding. I have to get, I have to like just get infusions. But what I would have done, and I would have done it more purposely, is to create a council, create an advisory board, create, let's say, a circle of people who I could go, and they would be different, a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, somebody from accounting, somebody in legal, and basically on a quarterly basis or even a yearly basis, sit down and say, here's where I am. What do you think? And get that counsel advice. It's a very lonely job being an entrepreneur. I'm very driven because I'm very driven about solving problems and making things work so people really enjoy their experience, whether it's a theater program or it's an event. There's that question of the outcome for me is that the attendee, the audience member got enlightened, whether it's death of a salesman or they got what that doctor got what they were looking for so they could go back to their medical school. That to me is that kind of like altruistic success is how I measure success. I think I would do that. And also what I would also do, we spent all of our time on operations. I have a crackerjack team of event producers who run the Meta Meetings platform, and they're amazing. But it requires a lot of, lot of money and oversight, and it's terrific. Also, building the platform took a lot of time and money, and brain share. Spend more money on marketing and sales. It's the one that always gets the hind tit, as they say. And if I had my rule, I would have a hard 20% had to go to sales and marketing. And I ate from that and I suffered because of it. So I think it's a question, it's a hard balance to keep going. You have many things going on, but you have to be able to tell your story, differentiate yourself in the marketplace, and find the clients who are going to embrace you and help you grow.
Yeah, I love ending on that note because it shows that advice like that doesn't come from, I mean, it comes from years of experience, not just success. And entrepreneurship, like, from my eyes, is full of uncertainty. And hearing lessons from someone who's built a company over decades can be, incredibly valuable for someone for anyone who's just getting started. And I think those are like some insights people can take and apply to their own journeys. And it's easy to focus on what the end result will be. But like stories like yours, it just reminds us that every successful company is built through persistence, learning on throughout the way, like on the way, and just being able to adapt. And I hope like I mean I know I took away like feeling I know something that I took away was feeling more inspired after having this wonderful conversation from you. So this will be the end of our conversation. Mary, thank you so much for joining TekXpresso and sharing your journey about building Map Digital. And one of my biggest takeaways from this conversation is that long-term success isn't about just having a great idea. It's about continuously adapting, embracing change, and always like focusing on creating value for the people you serve. And I think that's a lesson that applies whether you're like whether you're building a build whether you're building a business, starting a project, or just simply trying to make an impact. So thank you very much for joining Tech Espresso today.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I wish you very good success in your entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you.